Tonight on the Cover One Buffalo podcast, we are joined by the fantastic Joe Marino of Locked On Bills, who will join Aaron Quinn in trying to talk me off the ledge. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
I quit.
I was just that was so perfect for how I feel about the night, is that the audio didn't even play on the clip, so I couldn't even pretend to do good evening because it's not a good evening. But welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You're joining your host Greg Tompsett, and now my slightly more annoyed partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. And obviously the topic of the day is today the Buffalo Bills traded wide receiver Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans. They traded him along with a 2024 6th round pick and a 2025 5th round pick in exchange for a 2025 2nd round pick. I spent a great deal of time today explaining some of the salary cap hits. They are taking a $31 million dead cap hit this year, which is 3.3 more than they had already planned to have him
not play
on the roster. So they will now pay $3.3 million more for him to be on the Houston Texans roster. On the good side, they will have no cap hits in the future. They're completely clean of Stefon Diggs moving forward. They'll get a premium draft asset next year. There's a lot of good arguments about how this is better long-term. You're not paying a 32, 33, 34-year-old receiver $19 million plus each year. There are a lot of legitimate cases of why this is better long-term. There is no case that they're better in 2024. And at some point, I will get my head around the fact that they're better long-term on making it okay. But right now, I'm still mad that this happened. I'm mad at Stefon Diggs for how he acted. I'm mad at Josh Allen for not helping the situation more. I'm mad Brandon Beane found discipline to take his medicine today, but didn't have the discipline to tell Diggs he couldn't have his extension 2 years ago. I'm mad that we did the trade today and not a week before the new league year started, when we could have actually set things up and restructured things properly to replace more of his production at the receiver position. I'm mad at all those things. I'll get over it. I'll look at the long-term future in time. But right now, I'm just mad.
I'm mad I have to be here. I want to real quickly say that
shout out to Sal being in Australia and not having to deal with any of this and just waking up to it.
I want to say, shout out real quick too. I'm obligated to be here because we are presented by Hurt in a Car, call William Mattar. So shout out to the people over William Mattar. They are the only reason that I dragged myself into this tonight. I was going to talk myself
I actually shot William a message earlier to ask if I have a case to sue the Bills because they traded away a player that I like.
Personal feelings are hurt.
Yeah, correct. I have been personally injured in the feelings.
And it's not that kind of personal injury.
Yeah. I'm still waiting on a formal response. I have not been told that I can't sue the Bills.
I don't believe you can. If we could, I would have done it a long time ago. But I'm mostly hurt here, Greg, because the massive L that I have taken here coming into this one. I was adamant there was no way that Stefon Diggs was not a member of the Buffalo Bills here in 2024 and beyond. And I swallow that pill, take my medicine on that one, and also learn a lesson to anytime I think the Bills or a team in the NFL cannot do something, I'm never going to be 100% on that because they always prove a way to do those things. And I don't know anything that I'm talking about. So here we are.
Yeah. Honestly, without further ado, I'm going to bring up our guest. For anyone who didn't watch earlier, along with our guys, make sure you're checking out. So Eric Turner, Anthony Prohaska were joined by Chris Trapasso earlier for an immediate reaction show. I watched that one and enjoyed every minute of it. I also watched the host of Locked On Bills, our own Joe Marino, and his live reaction to the Stefon Diggs trade earlier. Joe, how was your field trip with your daughter today?
Hi guys. First of all, I was given 3 dates by Greg that work for us to get together before the draft, and I'm like, let's go ahead and do it this week.
Yeah.
And little did I know, but I didn't realize that you guys were like definitely in a funk. You guys are in an emotional place that I didn't anticipate stepping into. So this is interesting. Also interesting how I found out about the Stefon Diggs news. I woke up very early this morning and I got all my work done for the day and just gonna go have a fun day with my daughter, a preschool field trip, a safari,
It's awesome.
I'm on a wagon, about 30 little kids, preschoolers, maybe about 20 adults. It's being pulled by 3 Clydesdales. There's zebras around me, antelopes, potbelly pigs, llamas, ostriches, giraffes. And my phone starts going crazy. My daughter's trying to feed a Highland cow. I learned that Stefon Diggs has been traded. And much like what you guys were saying, I had to do like a double. Like, this is real. Like, this is real. And then I certainly gave the field trip the attention that it deserved. We had a fun time. We finished it out, but then it was like, okay, I'm not done for the day. I thought I would come in, have a nice casual afternoon, come on with you guys at 9:00, talk about the draft, and go to sleep. And my day got blown up. Nobody knows how to blow up my day quite like Brandon Beane.
Honestly. Yeah, and honestly, it's not so much. I can't speak for Greg as much. For me, it's the shock of, like I said right before you came on here, of I was so adamant that they couldn't move on from Stefon Diggs with that dead cap hit. And why would you pay? Like, I still see production value, even though there was a lot of talk about him not showing up in a playoff game and him dipping out in the second half of the season. You've moved Gabe Davis, right? Which, okay, I'm fine with that. And then you've got some nice young pieces that we want to see get the ball more. But we were going into this draft already with Stefon Diggs on the roster, thinking about we really need a target early and get a wide receiver, maybe even trade up to eventually replace him. And now we're talking about, now you might need 2 wide receivers. We're talking a little bit offline, like, do you have to move up all the way and get it? Like, that's, for me, it's the shock of, I think a lot of Bills fans are just saying like, okay, well, we'll just trade up early and we'll get one of these good guys, or we're just going to get somebody at 28 that's going to be the guy. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, this is massive production and shoes to fill that has been something I haven't had to worry about for 4 years. And now I have to worry about that. Plus the idea of, can Curtis Samuel be wide receiver 2? Can Khalil Shakir continue to step up in these roles? Like, there's a lot of what ifs right now in this pass catching wide receiver room. And I think that's the shock to me, not as much disappointment or being upset about it.
I'm disappointed and upset for all 3 of us, so that's fine. The situation that frustrates me is I completely respect the forward-looking view, and that we got a premium asset when Keenan Allen went for a 4th, when Amari Cooper went for a 5th, when even lesser receivers like Judy and Elijah Moore went for less than that. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, that's a good return for the age and the cash that was taken on. That's not a bad thing. That's a positive thing. If people want to look at, hey, maybe the downward trend at the end of last season was something that they thought was going to continue, or that it wasn't the core muscle injury that we thought it was, or that there was other things going on, I'm not going to pretend or lie to myself that prior to this morning, I was adamant that no, we saw him on pace before the core muscle injury for his best season as a Buffalo Bill 6 months ago. He was the number 1 receiver in the NFL 6 months ago. And now it's, he was going downhill. He wasn't going to contribute to this year anyways. Joe Brady's offense can't even use him. That's just coping. That's just lying to ourselves and pretending that, he wasn't going to contribute to this team at all. We were better off without him. No, we're not.
And not to cut you off here, Greg, but a comment like this, and not to say anything here, I'm not saying anything about you, John, but I agree. Shakir looked really good towards the end of the season, did have more yards in the last 10 games, but some of that is because Stefon Diggs was still on the field, pulling gravity from defenses, right?
Yeah, and again, I think it's very even-handed and the right mindset to look at the long term. And from 2025 and beyond, this is a winning move. This is a positive move. I'm just not going to look past the fact that it's April 3rd, 2024. We've got 4 more months before the 2024 season starts. The 2024 season, we literally can't be better because every move we still can make, free agent signing, draft pick, we could have already made. We only have less assets in 2024 because we have 3.3 million less in the cap to spend and one less draft pick, and any of the future cap benefit or future premium draft assets are in 2025 and beyond. So anything we do between now and the season, we also could have done and had Stefon Diggs. So now we're going to do those things, and we're going to be better from this moment without Stefon Diggs to the start of the season. Of course, we're going to be better. Maybe we sign Tyler Boyd and draft Brian Thomas Jr., and they end up putting those guys on the field, and that ends up being good. We can do those things, but none of those scenarios involve all those things could have happened and had Stefon Diggs in 2024. So I'll get over it. I'll move past the short-sightedness of that. And it's admittedly short-sighted, but we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who might get hurt. We don't know what other things may happen. We don't know what opportunities may present themselves or not. We don't know if the second-round pick we just got is going to be some awesome hit or another Cody Ford or Boogie Basham. We don't know if that money that we now have to spend next year will be really smartly invested or be another Trent Murphy or Star Lotulelei. Like, we don't know those things. I knew what Stefon Diggs was. And even if it was the diminished version in the second half of last year, the second half of last year alone, he was on pace for 950 yards and 7 touchdowns. No one else on our roster has ever done that. I would like 950 yards and 7 touchdowns. So that's where I'm not going to tell myself that, oh, it is better in 2025 and beyond. That is very real. I'm not going to lie to myself and be like, oh, that makes it okay that I think the timing of this sucked, and I think Diggs forcing us to do this sucked, and I think the fact that Bean set himself up with an early extension to now be in this position sucks. All those things still frustrate me, even if I'll get over it eventually when I grasp the fact that it's better long term.
How do you reconcile what's the worst thing that's going to happen? The Bills are not going to win the Super Bowl in 2024. Yeah. There's a roster reset happening here, and this is the continuation of it. And I think it's interesting to learn what the reality of the timing and what really sparked this. And did Bean put together the offseason blueprint with this as part of it or not? Right. Cause this is a heck of a pivot.
A wrench to throw in there.
Yeah. Like if there's a lot to consider there. I don't think you can make a case that they're in a better position right now for 2024. We'll see what happens in the coming months.
Of course.
But I feel like this nucleus that we've enjoyed so much over the last 4 or 5 years, they just stall out in the playoffs. Yeah. So I guess for me, I'm interested in how this reset maybe positions the Bills to get over the hump. The analogy or the comparison that I kept making, or I've made a few times today, is, well, they've been spinning their tires trying to get over the hump. Well, those tires are not getting them over the hump. So let's put a new set of tires on. And I think in some ways, the totality of the resets positions them to do that, while there's certainly the sticker shock in getting over what we've seen happen over the last several months with this roster construction.
For sure. And I think inarguably those tires are better in 2025 and 2026. I just wasn't ready to have a donut for the 2024 season.
Look
at you, Greg Tompsett. That's a heck of a comeback. I don't even know what to say to that. Well done.
So, Aaron, I know I don't want to just be a downer. I've been a downer in the Slack channel all day. I've been a downer on Twitter all day. People who have watched this show, Aaron and I've been going for 6 years. We're almost at 500 shows. This is the most frustrated I've been in a long time, besides like a season-ending loss. I'm just frustrated with all the circumstances that put us in this position, and then to see these things. So I don't want to just be a downer on this, but I think I was a little frustrated also in a lot of the purely rose-colored responses to everything. Well, we still have Josh Allen. Of course we still have Josh Allen. Of course the team's still good. We're still the favorites to win the division. We're still going to be good because we have Josh Allen. Anytime we have Josh Allen, it's going to be good. I want to give every season of Josh Allen, especially like an age 27 prime of his career season, as many chances as possible. And we just consciously made this season less good. That's what frustrates me, is that, we don't know what's going to happen long term. We don't know where those opportunities may come from. I don't want to feel like we didn't give every prime healthy Josh Allen season every opportunity we had, and this seems like a conscious decision not to do that. That's where my frustration comes from. Again, admitting it is the right thing long term. It is the right thing building forward, and they just made the next 3 to 4 years a brighter future than what it was before. That's an inarguably good thing, and that will be what we need to cling to moving forward. I'm just frustrated the mechanism of how it happened.
Greg,
yeah, again, go ahead.
Greg, as you or Aaron too, as you guys have run the gamut of emotions, have you finding yourself relieved at all? I mean, for as awesome as Stefon Diggs has been, it's been annoying too, right? Like every day, it's like, whoa, we're joking around, but we see a picture of Stefon Diggs working out, and he's got a pair of blue shorts on, and we can't help but say, well, is he? What does this mean? Like every day, so at some outlet, they're engagement farming Stefon Diggs conversation, and I was tired of it. Sure. I'm not trying to like take it off of the main thing here, but like when I
for sure a silver lining.
Yeah,
it's a silver lining.
So a couple things. One, without knowing, I don't think it's part of the plan, right? This is a blindside. As frustrated as we are, I think the front office is frustrated by this. It seems like there was maybe a forced hand here, and some of that has to do with Joe. I think what you're saying too, that whether it was them finally being sick of that stuff, that extra stuff going on, or if it was Steph necessarily pushing his way and whatnot. We saw Joe Mixon tweeting about talking a couple weeks ago about him wanting to get traded. We don't know if there was a forced trade or not. Bean was pretty elusive in the press conference. So I think they're also frustrated. To that point though, Joe, I think for me, some of the shock came from, I didn't take much of that super seriously. I think there's when you are dealing with like top diva-ish wide receivers, it's sort of part of the package deal. It comes with a lot of these guys. They're egotistical. They think they are him. They're sitting on the sidelines yelling they're him. It comes with some of that. There's jokes about cryptic tweets. Steph probably took it to another level. But to kind of ease your concern, Greg, I think Joe brings up a point in that, yes, you're losing on-field production talent. And by every measure, from the people that were in the locker room, we heard Khalil Shakir on Eric Wood's podcast talking about what a great leader he is. And I believed the way Khalil Shakir was talking about. I've talked to some players that say, Steph does all the right things in the building. Steph is Steph. There's always like that, a caveat, like, yeah, Steph is Steph, and there's some extra, but he works hard and he's a really good teammate. But without that extra attention, Josh has to deal with, and the questions that Josh has to deal with every week, and the questions that Steph has to deal with, and the tweets from Steph's brother trashing on Josh. Maybe I wasn't thinking about that as much as I should have been, or taking that stuff as seriously as I should have been. And maybe there is some addition by subtraction in the unity of the team. And also, we are going to have to replace that number one wide receiver role. But we talk about this all the time, Greg. There's only one ball to go around, and you got up-and-coming guys like Dalton Kincaid, like Khalil Shakir. You're bringing in a Curtis Samuel. I love James Cook. Like, there's weapons on this team. The core is good, and it's young, and it's coming on. It's all rookie deals and stuff like that. And you're going to add another one or two here on these rookie deals. And to your point, you still have Josh Allen. We've seen him succeed with John Brown, Cole Beasley-led offense. I think they're in a better position than they were before Stefon Diggs arrived with the offense. Even without him, I think they have better playmakers right now in place than they had before he arrived. And I think they're going to continue to add to it. So there is a little silver lining probably mixed in here. But to me, it's just the shock of, again, not assuming that they would be able to pull off this move with that dead cap space. And I think it was a blindsided move that wasn't part of those. Greg and I talk about all the time. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have these binders and plans of years out. And yes, there will be some relief years down the road, but I think that's a lucky happenstance of a wrench being thrown in, is like, now we'll have that cap space, but they weren't planning on it, and they weren't intending to move on from Stefon Diggs 2 months ago.
We for sure were conditioned to it. So the fact that we were used to it and blew off the cryptic tweets doesn't mean they weren't annoying. It just means we got used to it. There were certainly people in that building who were annoyed with it and tired of it and not looking forward to it each day, having to deal with and answer questions to it. There was obviously a lot of people asking about it. And I think, Aaron talked about it earlier and like taking the L's that we did. Like I was adamant that this was not going to happen, that this was not going to be the case. So Carl asking here, the word was that Diggs could not be traded because of the $31 million dead cap hit made it cost prohibitive. So, and now when they say it only gives us $3 million less to spend. Yeah. So the two scenarios were, and the reason that I spoke in the absolutes I did was because Stefon Diggs was previously counting $27.8 million against the salary cap. Now, trading him, he counts $31 million against our cap while he's playing with CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. So my impression of, well, of course they're not going to eat the largest dead cap hit for any receiver in NFL history to let him play for somebody else. I interpreted that as, well, Brandon Breen's not going to do that in a healthy Josh Allen prime of his career season. So I incorrectly spoke in those absolutes that, no, of course they're not going to do that. They're not going to eat $31 million for a guy who's not going to be on our team when they also can't replace him. So the fact that in theory it's only $3 million more is correct. Like we technically can move him because it's only $3 million more. I just never thought he would eat $31 million in dead cap to have someone not be on the team in a situation like this. Like it wasn't when
they first got in the Marcel Darius move,
somebody else's contract or off the field, like legal issues or, like things that could have happened with Von Miller and things like that. Those are real scenarios to come up. So, Joe, why don't we use this as our first, you get to be the very first William Mattar here to help segment guest.
Help us.
To be able to help us figure out how can we help? How can we fix this now? And for anyone who doesn't know and who only knows you from your fantastic work at Locked On Bills, you came into this industry in the draft industrial complex as a draft expert. Obviously anyone who doesn't watch Locked On Bills, also the Draft Dude, your awesome show with Kyle and going through all the work that you've done over the years. Now we get to put ourselves in a position where we can try to figure out what are the next steps that we can take to now improve this roster and respond not only immediately in 2024, but invest in pieces that can be added in the future. So I know prior to this news, we had all kinds of fun topics that we were going to touch on here today, but why don't we kind of open up a little bit, share with some of the folks where your head is at now is it completely wide receiver or bust? Is there still a case that we can go another direction? Is there a move that could happen before the draft that would move us off of there? Is it not only wide receiver or bust, but it's, hey, we need to move up for a prime wide receiver? Where is your mindset if you're Brandon Beane going into this draft?
Well, I certainly want to get a meaningful addition at wide receiver. I struggle with the big trade up. I think generally speaking, I don't like trading up for non-quarterbacks.
Agreed.
So like football is the ultimate team sport, and going up and parting with meaningful draft capital for one player. You're saying we don't want to have these 2 or 3 players. We just want to get this one guy. And so I like the volume approach there. I've studied the draft long enough to realize that you got to have some humility about it and realize that you're not the smartest guy in the world and your draft picks are probably not always going to hit. So I want as many chances as I can to get hits, especially as we've seen star power added to the NFL throughout the draft, not even necessarily with the highest picks. So I push back on the big trade up, right? Especially when you're talking about trading all that stuff away for a guy that's never played it down in the NFL. And especially if you're doing it, it's for a wide receiver, and the strength of this draft class is wide receiver.
Yep.
So that's not my favorite idea.
The last time the Bills traded up for a wide receiver, it was in a historically good draft class with a ton of depth at wide receiver.
Yeah. And Joe, your plan going into the offseason, correct me if I'm wrong, was this team needs to get more and younger pieces and hit on more of these draft picks on younger guys on rookie contracts. So you don't really want to give up a lot of that and not have that funneling of young talent coming in while Josh Allen's starting to get paid here going forward.
Correct. And I think there's some real roadblocks with trading up. First of all, who wants to move back to 28? I mean, somebody's going to have to want to do that. And to do that, they're going to have to trade away from somebody awesome, right? Like
and get a lot of picks in return.
Yeah. You're talking about 28, 60, you're certainly 2025 first round pick, probably a 4 this year. Like for one guy that's never played in the league when there's good receivers throughout. If they do that, I will certainly hope for the best, but there'd be some reservations on my behalf about all the missed opportunities that go along with going to get that one guy.
So real quick, before we click start here and get it rolling, or I may even start it and pause it as it gets into a couple of picks here and see. Oh, see, so this made it easy because Harrison, Malik Neighbors, and Aduns went bam, bam, bam.
I think that's going to be a scenario, right?
And I think it's very real. Whether it's in the top 5, top 6, top 7, I think it's very, very likely. But Joe, talk to us and the fans listening about how far of a drop-off do you see from that top 3 to that next tier? You've done some really good shows lately on going through some of that next tier in different groups of 3 and 4 and 5 receivers. How big of a drop-off do you see in why people are so adamant about wanting to move up for one of them? Is that part of the case? Is that, in just your principle is it's not worth trading up, or maybe there's not as much separation as people think in this historic class?
I think those top 3 guys, Harrison, Neighbors, and Adunze, are special talents, right? I think they're very clean evals. Like, what are you concerned about? They're big, they're athletic, they're productive in college, their ceiling, there's untapped. Like, it's everything you can want in prospects. And like, you think about a guy like Adunze and just the mindset that we've learned about him. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the Bills' number 1 receiver on their board. Harrison's special. Neighbors has got unbelievable upside. It's so clean. I think that's what you love about that. And I do like other receivers, don't get me wrong, but there's certainly questions. There's questions that I don't have to answer about those top 3 guys. So yeah, I think there is a big time line in the sand. And I think
how about
Claude's
super important position question here? Is it Oduns or Adunze?
Odunze.
Okay.
Odunze.
Good. I've been purely by random accident pronouncing it correctly. That's my favorite. All right, let me get the rest of this rolling here, and we'll see. I will watch a little bit as
I was going to say, where do you have Brian Thompson Jr. going here? And is he in that, like, so
we've now made it to 20, and he hasn't gone.
Yeah, there's these separations of tiers, but the way I've heard a lot of people talking about it, he's kind of in the purgatory floating in between. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the 4th best receiver in this class is Xavier Leggett, and then I get to Brian Thomas. I have a first-round grade on Leggett. I've got a mid-2 on Thomas. So preferentially, I like Leggett more. I think he's a more complete prospect, in my opinion.
So real quick, you're not one, you share that with many folks that cover one. I know Eric is a huge fan of his as well. I have become a huge fan of his as I've read people's work like you and Eric. When you get to that point, help explain why you're maybe not as scared off by the 5th year breakout for Leggett.
Well, yeah. So for Xavier, high school quarterback that transitions to receiver at South Carolina. So that's obviously a major transition. And during that transition, we had the COVID year, which was not good for anybody in their development.
Yeah.
And we also had he had an injury. He had a significant, like a motorcycle accident. I think there's some context there that leads me to believe that I'm okay with 4 years of basically no production because of what he did in 2023, he did in the SEC. His best game was probably against Georgia. Those are NFL players. I thought there's a lot of translatability about what he does. So I think it's a fair question. And, you don't love a guy that it takes for him to get to 22 years old to beat up on 19-year-olds, right? Like I certainly get that and what that means for the next level. But I'm so comfortable with the tape that I watched in 2023. I like the context there. I certainly love to talk to the South Carolina staff if I could to learn more there. But based on what I can gather, I'm pretty comfortable with it.
And he seems to be the kind of fit, like a lot of these guys have some of the elements that at least Bills fans are clamoring for in an X wide receiver, like some speed or height, but he seems to have a little bit of all of the package that Bills fans are looking for, which to me is more of like that Goldilocks guy if we're back here.
Yeah, I love the completeness and versatility that he offers. I think he can play certainly on the perimeter, 6'1", 220 pounds, 4.39 speed, great functional play strength. I have no concerns about him winning those heavyweight battles on the line of scrimmage, but also as a power slot. He can win down the field, yards after catch. There's a fullness to the skill set, really good hands and ball skills. I really like the package there.
What are you doing over there, Greg?
Playing around.
Okay.
I'm playing around. So as we look at this, we're in a position where some of the most recent picks that went, A.D. Mitchell and Brian Thomas Jr., both guys who were very popular picks, and that Joe just explained why he has Xavier Legette graded above there. Graham Barton is a guy that we've seen more popular, along with Jackson Powers Johnson, as an option, as a kind of a, whether it's a David Edwards upgrade or a Mitch Morris replacement. And, the debate of whether Connor McGovern would stay at center or go back. Still two guys who would be day one starters on the interior. We're also in a position now where we've been offered some trades, and that maybe if the Bills felt the same, would they have the temptation to say, hey, could we recoup some of that value, move back a couple spots, and maybe be able to pick up that third rounder that we would have, wanted to have before, and be in a position where, you would be able to, pick up a couple other pieces and be able to put some of that together to get some of these different ones. I don't know if we could get 65 or what we'd have to add to move up there.
Well, Joe, I want to talk,
but that kind of move, do you think it's worth risking, Joe, if you have Legette like that on your board? Do you just take him here at 28 because you have him graded there? Or do you take the temptation of, hey, could we move back, still get our guy, and recoup some value?
With this scenario, I'm not messing around with a trade back. I think there's too many landmines behind the Bills, whether that's Baltimore, Kansas City, Detroit. Detroit would love Legette, who would be absolutely what they need for their offense too, when they lose Josh Reynolds. And, I think they got other players that win in different ways. Kansas City, Carolina. Can you scroll a little bit further down into the second round? New England, 100%. If they go quarterback at 3, they're going to pick a receiver at 34. Arizona. Even if Arizona picks Marvin Harrison, like, their wide receivers stink. Mm-hmm. So I think there's too many landmines to fart around with it. I think you should pick them. I think you should pick them right here at 28.
And on that note, like, with these mock drafts, and you've done this for years and been part of these, do we get a little bit sucked into the boards that were presented versus what the NFL is actually going to be?
You mean that Xavier Legette's not the 63rd prospect in the draft?
Because we could play the machine here, and maybe we could trade back a few spots, right. And we've done that in these mocks where, okay, and then he's here to us, and everybody feels good, and we got a bunch of picks, and we got the guy we wanted. But I'm guessing if guys like Eric Turner and yourself and Anthony Prohaska are all like, no, this guy's way higher up, NFL scouts are also feeling that same vibe for them.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And I think the reality is, I think people would be floored if they actually saw an NFL draft board and how different 32 of them are.
I was just going to say, if they saw all 32, they would really be shocked how different they could be.
The players that aren't even on some teams' boards. And, I love these mock draft simulators. I absolutely love them. I have a lot of fun on them, and they're great super exercise. Useful. But at the same time, like, we do fall into this perception of how this actually is. And people even send me like emails and stuff like, hey, I did a mock draft simulation and this guy was available in the 3rd round. Probably not. We have to be mindful of that and condition ourselves to understand the variance that exists amongst 32 teams. And then there's a consensus element to the media side, right? Where there's a lot of groupthink, and then it all kind of has to look a certain way for everyone to accept it. The reality is there's a whole lot more variance than what these simulators present.
And I think today certainly showed us that they need to be able to make a strong move. If anything, Brandon Beane's history has showed us it's more likely he'll trade up than trade back. So I think kidding ourselves, and like Aaron said, I'm certain I could game their machine right now.
Oh, 100%.
Trade back to 33, pick up a trade that I might not even really be able to get from Carolina, although it is Carolina, so you never know.
Yeah, sure.
And then still get the guy we want, and everyone will applaud and be like, oh my God, look at that amazing mock. But like Aaron said, that's just kidding ourselves. That's just, mock draft masturbation here and making ourselves feel better for it. I am going to take Xavier Legette. You have joined the others in convincing me.
Do we want to pause up here early?
Yeah. So, and we see the run afterwards. We see Chop Robinson, a guy that's been very popular. Tyler Nubin, a guy that's very popular. I even learned how to pronounce his name, that it's Nubin and not Nubbin. Jackson Powers Johnson, Lad McConkey, Troy Franklin, a lot of interesting guys. Darius Robinson, a guy that maybe has some of the tweener ability, maybe be what Boogie Basham was supposed to be. There is a spot here where it gets into, could you use some of that new ammo that was picked up to maybe move up from 60, because it is easier to move up in the second round than it is in the first round.
Maybe.
Well, and I guess this leads to another question for you, Joe. There's other needs, right? Interior defensive line, edge is tough in this draft, but I've been on this kick a little bit lately of a double dip at wide receiver, and I was on it even before the Steph Diggs thing, and now with Steph Diggs gone, the double dip feels maybe more of a draw to me in this draft. Particularly, we talk about the depth of this draft, and if you could move up here and grab another guy, or sit back and wait and grab another guy, are you in on a double dip?
Probably. I feel like a lot of the guys I would have liked to have picked just came off the board.
I know, same here.
That run of 4 picks was really painful.
Right.
Burton, Pearsall, Wilson, and Worthy all going bam, 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 bam.
That might be why you would have to make that jump.
But yeah, that is probably a good example in the moment of, or Braden Fisk, maybe that's a guy that they like, whoever they grade as one there. It does show the risk of not wanting to move up, sometimes when there can be a run.
I think the benefit here, the way that this was falling, is that if Chris Jenkins is on the board, man, I know some people might like Keon Coleman here. I wouldn't.
No,
but
like
Chris Jenkins is there. So let's go through some of the positions that we're still talking about here. Interior offensive line. So I know people. Is Haynes next for you after Barton and JPJ? Is he the next guy for you?
I think Frazier is probably ahead of him, but yeah, Christian Hayes. I think pick 60 is great value for him. I think it's a starting guard all day long.
Okay. So we see an option there. How about so one that I've struggled with is edge and where it goes. Like, I see so many different rankings after you get past that top 3. Everyone has their top 3 in some order, but once you get past Latu or whoever, whatever it may be next, it gets into the Robinsons or it gets into some of the other directions. Who do you like in that next tier of pass rusher? And is there anyone? It seems like it drops off pretty quickly at edge this year.
Yeah, I like Chop Robinson a ton. I have a first round grade on him, but then I think that's where I find the drop off to be really significant. These are rotational ends for me. Like, I've
seen some people talk about
enough of that.
Muhammad Kamara. Is Muhammad Kamara?
I need to watch him still.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know Chris Jenkins is there. I know our guy Daniel Harms loves Dwayne Carter. I've seen some people talk about Michael Hall. And then now let's look at Aaron's case for a double dip, where some people I think would be ecstatic with Keon Coleman at 60. How about, where are you on Devontae Walker and Javon Baker as later options?
I've done my eval on Javon Baker. I like him a lot. I'd like him a lot more if the Bills had a 3rd round pick. I don't think he'd be in play for me at 60. Good player. I like the vertical skill set. There's a lot there. I don't love him here. Devontae Walker, I'm a little concerned with, especially at this point. Some of the efficiency stuff there just makes me a bit nervous. So I don't love these receiver options, especially because we took one at 28. I'm open. I would love a Cornelius Lucas or something like that later on.
What if some of those guys?
I'll make the case in just a moment. If I'm assuming between your love for Jenkins and Aaron's homerism with Michigan, that's going to be our pick in just a moment here.
It will, definitely.
If we do that, I do think a guy like Baker would now make sense that, hey, we're floating along and he's still on the board and it's pick 75, it's pick 80, and all of a sudden it's, now that we have 2 seconds, could we take 128 and next year's 3rd and move up to get a guy this year, because we still have 3 first and second round picks next year? Does that give us a little more flexibility to play around and do something like that? I could see a combo like that happening.
And before we take Jenkins, when we scroll up to that run there of it was Roman Wilson, Xavier.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Out of those guys, is there any Purcell, Wilson, Worthy
Yeah,
Would
so if we
any of
could
them be
undo
guys
this,
you'd be willing to go up
if
and
we could have
grab?
traded to 49, who would you have taken out of that foursome?
Chris Jenkins is going to be my highest rated player out of including those receivers.
Including those guys?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I like all those receivers. Wilson's the one I probably like the most, especially now that Leggett's part of the mix. Yeah, I'm enjoying watching the Wolverines. Wait till you find
Michigan
out
is having a good draft class.
You want a hot take? My QB2 is McCarthy.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's sassy. I like it.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have some more Michigan on here then.
I like Sandstrill. He's a stud.
Yeah.
I got to watch their offensive lineman. That's
Harnell. You like Harnell later?
I got to watch him still. Yeah.
All right.
But
All right, so I'm going to take Jenkins.
Sprint. That was like a sprint to the podium moment for me. Him there at 60. Look at the Panthers getting Keon Coleman at 65. Christian Hayes, Baker.
Yeah. Right there, Baker at 74. So that, it does. It's around where it probably would have been. But so these are actually the ones I'd be interested in if it got to where it's like a Malachi Corley, Jamari Thrash. Those are some of the guys that I really wish we still had a third round pick.
Right.
Indy we could let Corum, dude, just running back.
One of those guys fall to us to have a chance for it. Stupid comp pick formula.
So can you pause it at 99?
Yep.
I'd like to see what's available. Like what if the Bills did have this pick, which we were hoping they would.
Right.
What would we be talking about? Oh, I like that safety out of Texas Tech. Deidre, he's a stud, man.
That's Steve Mathis is
he like him?
Banging the drum for him for a while. Yeah, Deidre Taylor Demerson that plays bigger than his size. Like he's
yeah, and like legit ball skills and coverage ability. That's what I love about him. And he hits for sure. He's super athletic.
Yeah, this again, it's hard to know where those things would have fallen. Mm-hmm. It looks like who's the Ohio State D tackle?
Michael Hall. I'm a big fan of as well.
So it looks like Hall is still there. You get into a couple other spots of where we'd have some guys available. Mahogany. How about Vaki? Have you had a chance to work on him yet?
No. My buddy Scott Morano hit me up actually today. He's like, you got to watch Vaki. Because I just did Cole Bishop and I was just watching literally just Cole there. Hello, hi Cole Bishop. Here. Oh, Cooper Beebe's that's a sprint to the podium.
I would say the top three guys available here at 128.
Malik Washington.
Really excited if one of those three was there.
Yeah. Well, the Bills have a couple of picks right here, don't they?
Correct. We have 128, 133, 144.
Yo, if we get like Beebe and Malik Washington, that'd be like unbelievable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, when someone had done the comparison and they were making the case, they're like, yeah, Malik Washington's small, but I see some Steve Smith. I'm like, ooh, gets me all excited. Feels good in my chest. I'd love to have me some spicy sure.
Well, and if you address wide receiver early, it doesn't matter about size as much. You're going to need somebody to be able to move inside out type of guy.
Yeah, you get a Xavier Legette, we're just fine at the X receiver.
Yeah.
All right, so Joe, what order would you, if you had to roll the dice here that, hey, somebody's going to survive a couple picks, would you go with BB first since we already have a receiver, or how is your board set up for these three?
Probably. Can we go a little bit further down? I'd like to see, okay, if we don't get.
So let's look at each one so we know what's coming up here. So we have Bishop. How about Malik Mustafa?
He's nice. I like him.
He looks like a superhero with his shirt off.
That's helpful.
When he did his workout and had the 42.5 vertical jump, I was like, holy crap.
I think the kids are calling that he has the bunnies, he can jump like
Is that a new term? The bunnies?
I need to keep up with the youths here.
Yeah, I think so. This is not the right panel to confirm that. So
yeah, correct. I'm gonna have to ask my nephew. I'm gonna have to text my nephew and ask if that's a thing. All right. So after BB, we've got a couple Michigan players. You said you got to do some work on their offensive line here. How about Bortolini?
I like him. This would be early for me, though.
Okay.
I love the idea of Zinter and waiting on him. He doesn't need to come in right away.
Yeah,
a big injury.
I would, especially because David Edwards is it's really a 1-year deal, and he started 4 games over the last 2 seasons. You know what I mean? I know that they said some really nice things about David Edwards recently, and I think he's a big catalyst for kind of the transition with the offensive line. 2 years, $6 million with an easy out after 1. That doesn't lock me in.
Yeah, usually I don't see BB here and Zinter's there, and I'm okay with that.
Daryl is informing us that Bunnies is old, So
gosh.
Daryl's way more hip than I am, so I believe him.
I gotta trust Daryl. We'll work on it. We'll work on it. All right. So I know you mentioned Cornelius Johnson, but I know a lot of there's a lot of excitement about Malik Washington. So now seeing the board and what's available as some fallbacks, or this is also a spot where maybe they could even get sneaky and try to make a move for pick 129 to be able to not even have the risk of losing anybody.
I like that I would feel good with BB or Zinter. Like I'd be cool with either one.
All right. So is that a reason to take Malik Washington then?
Have we looked at the full wide receiver board?
So Cornelius Johnson was there.
This gets a little dicey, doesn't it?
Taj Washington, McCaffrey, Anthony.
I think we got to pick Washington and then live with either Zinter or BB. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah,
Anytime I hear potential, Steve Smith comparisons, I'm gonna.
Ice up, baby. Ice up.
Oh,
Bishop and BB back to back.
But that's okay. Jerks. We said we're cool with it. We're all right.
Right, we are. But San Francisco, that wasn't cool, man.
Not cool.
Mean.
Could you imagine a real life draft? Like you actually know these people and you're like ready to draft them, getting sniped.
it's
So
tough living.
Let's go back. So now we've snagged 2 receivers. So we did the double dip. We've got Xavier Legette. We got Chris Jenkins.
Line.
We're now feeling good about the defensive line, especially having Austin Johnson and Daquan Jones back, but having Ed Oliver, Chris Jenkins, like that is such a huge core in the future. Really lucked out being able to have the talent that we had there with Malik Washington. We've got interior offensive line, a developmental guy that could be ready to step in after David Edwards. We haven't looked at anything in the secondary. So looking at safeties that are left and corners. Let's see if anybody stands out here to you. So Bo Braid, Mustafa, James Williams, McLaughlin.
Yeah, I like McLaughlin.
I like him a lot. That's a good Bills fit for me.
Yeah, Devonshire's going to be a Bill, right? That's just going to happen.
Yeah. So it's a Pitt DB.
Pitt DBs.
Cold.
Yeah. And an athletic one, right? Like we've had some Pitt DBs, but
play the slot a little bit. Ball skills. Yeah.
Can you imagine actually having a backup slot? Like a person who I didn't even know that was allowed. I didn't know you were allowed to have a backup
I've
slot.
got a guy later.
Can't never get injured.
Crush.
All right, Joe. Who's speaking to you here? Is one of the safeties here ready to make a move?
I would go either Mustafa or the Arkansas corner.
Okay. So I real quick while we're kind of talking here, the idea I read some of the stuff about, what people thought Mason Smith would be with his freshman year and how ridiculous he was. And you have the ACL injury and bouncing back. Do you still think that ceiling is there with that kind of guy, or did it kind of sap some of what his athletic potential could have been?
No, I think there's a lot of ceiling there. I don't know that with the pick of Jenkins, I get super into picking him at this point, but I mean, he's got first round physical traits.
Mm-hmm. It's a logjam at interior defensive line. If you pick one,
it's sad. There's way more D tackles than edges that I like. I could pick a D tackle every round and be like, I like that guy. Oh, I like that guy.
Yeah, edge runs up quick. And
actually, there's another one right there too. Was it Iowa's Logan Lee right there as well? I feel like he's a Sean McDermott rotational interior defensive lineman too. But yeah, it's just a logjam for the Bills right now.
All right, I already gave Aaron 2 Wolverines, so I'm taking Malik Mustafa because I like him.
Oh man, I would trade up for McLaughlin unless he's gonna be there. He's gonna be there. If he's there, I'm not gonna let him.
Turn it in, baby. Let's
go. Everybody's happy.
Here's the thing about that pick too, Joe. I think you know how hard it is for corners to make the transition to a Bills type scheme where you're playing a lot of off zone coverage. That's a hard transition for a lot of guys. And he's already got that. Like when you turn him on, he's in off zone and he's breaking on the ball. It's everything you want for Buffalo Bills corner.
Joe, any day 3 running backs that have intrigued you?
Jim Nagy was just talking up this Troy kid, Kamani Vidal.
Oh, he's nice, dude.
Yeah, this seems like
is Is he the guy that played like a bunch of different positions?
I need to study him, but like
I don't know on that,
the
but
word Jim said that best pass pro back he's looked at.
Yeah.
Tilt Money loves him. David Tilton,
Okay. All right.
the Air Raid hour, he loves him. And we were talking offline. The contact balance this dude has just pop. His contact balance reminds me of like Fred Jackson. He's not that size, but just like you hit him and he just keeps going.
Yeah, we need some running back depth as well.
Yeah.
There's
I
appropriate
would
time
love
for
a
it.
size speed guy to be able, to counteract what's there. But obviously, on day 3, you're gonna kind of be
I
in
think he had the
a
most
spot.
yards after contact last year. So even though he doesn't have that size that you would look for in that, it's hard to bring him down.
We got sniped for Devonshire there. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Jerk.
Sean
So
McDermott
how about
just
like
punching air right now.
how about give us our special
Best-
teams linebacker du jour, who's an
with the
athletic
best
guy who
name.
can soak up some. Well, obviously,
Yeah.
Steel Chambers and his adult film future is separate.
Oh man.
But who is a guy that maybe has some of those traits and can just be a athlete to play some special teams? We lost a lot, between Matakevich and Dodson and the different, obviously not even including Seren Neal or Trent Sherfield and different things. We lost a lot of special team snaps this year. So I do think having the extra day 3 picks, that's going to be a thing for us this year. And if we can double dip and have a guy who also contributes as a receiver, as a corner, as a safety, as a linebacker, that's great. But we need some guys who can come in and play special teams day 1.
Can you scroll down a little? Let's see if there's anything else that pops here. Yeah, we're getting too far. Ulafocio's fun.
Huh?
He's had injury stuff. You see there, but I like this tape, man. I like this tape. We could wait on him probably, but
yeah. Well, again, that's the same thing. That's gaming their rankings. When you're in pick 200, how realistic are some of
Will
those
you do
things?
me a favor and look at safety here for a second? I got a crush, Joe, and I want to ask you about him. Kenny Logan Jr., Kansas. You seen him at all?
No.
And I know some people have felt the same with Trey Taylor.
Kenny Logan.
Yeah.
If you get a chance to check him out, it looks exactly like a Taron Johnson to me. He played safety, hits like Taron, breaks on the ball like Taron. I think he could even come in and do that Cam Lewis role where he's a little bit of a backup nickel, a little bit of a backup safety, special team player. So we don't have to take him in this draft, but he's become a crush of mine. And I'm encouraging all my fellow Bills content creators to at least just take a look at him and see if I'm crazy. But I see a lot of Taron Johnson.
Tyler Owens there out of Texas Tech, super dynamic athlete that's been a big time special teams player. Hasn't played a ton on defense, but that special teams pedigree is really, really strong.
Okay.
What about edge? Like, don't you think we should at least look, get a body here?
So I was going to do the same thing. Tell me like the tallest, longest armed offensive tackle and defensive end. Just pick those 2 things. Whoever
Ras guy. Give me a Ras guy.
Yeah, whoever has the longest arms, they get picked.
Man, I watched Jeff Coat like 400 times. The Zion Tupelo Fatui, he's always hurt, but he's pretty interesting.
Okay.
I don't think he's undraftable medicals for sure.
Okay. How about anyone that is big size traitsy on the offensive tackle?
Last time we took,
I think Azerum was that guy. How many draft eligible players does Michigan have? Good Lord.
A ton. And they're all champions.
I say it's like they won the championship.
Hey Q, how did I not know about this Michigan thing you had going on? Like
I post
every
Saturday. I post
I have you muted on Twitter. I didn't see that.
Yeah. Well, then you're losing out on the Michigan stuff, man.
I only follow you for the golf takes, man.
Well, Cover One Golf now. You can come. You can keep me muted.
Is that a thing?
Cover One Golf.
They launched it today. Today they launched Cover One.
Well, I mean, I was at a safari and then I had to do.
It got a little lost in the Steph Diggs stuff.
But. Yeah, so something else happened today, and it slightly washed out our Cover One Golf launch today.
Wow, but, I thought. Well, congratulate, all the best. I look forward to seeing what happens there.
All right, I'm sold on the special teams pedigree pitch for Tyler Owens. We'll take him.
Pull the trigger.
And then we've got one last pick here. Then we'll look at our draft class, and we'll see with our friends at over at William Mattar. It's been awesome to work with them so far, and being able to kick off. I was kind of hoping their first show as a segment sponsor, we wouldn't have, literally the most frustrated topic I've had so far. But we've still found a way to help. So, any other way? What's up?
Oh, I
Edge,
liked Rame. I liked him a couple years ago at Oklahoma. I know.
Okay. This late, I think everything is just kind of a shot in the dark where it's purely based on the board.
We're not leaving with this many picks anyway.
Yeah, well, we're certainly not going to have that many make the roster, I don't think.
Right.
But you never know. We need this youth movement. We've pretty much jettisoned anyone who is 30 or older.
I love Bruce's meme or the Leonardo DiCaprio there.
The Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, that's pretty good. So again, we double dipped at receiver Xavier Legette and Malik Washington. We double dipped with Michigan Wolverines, Chris Jenkins and Zach Zinther, Malik Mustafa, Dwight McLaughlin, Kamani Vidal, Edifwan Olafoshoya. Ulafoscio, thank you. Yeah. Tyler Owens and Andrew Rame. We've got 2 interior offensive linemen. We've got, we only got 1 D tackle and no edge, I guess, if there was a question. We got plenty of special teams ability between Mustafa and Owens and McLaughlin and Ulafoscio. I think we put ourselves into a pretty good position, got a tough contact balance running back. I think this would be a pretty happy draft, and we got a bunch of D and C minuses from PFF, so I feel pretty good.
I like the red shirt we have with Zinter. I think that's a guy we can potentially look at as a starter in 2025. Juice for the receiver core. I'm over the moon with Chris Jenkins. Special teams upside on day 3. I think it's a great job.
Yeah. Nice. So, Joe, before we get you out of here, what's coming up next for your content as you get ready into this final stretch in the last couple weeks before the draft comes?
She asked Brandon Bean. He's the one that dictates my calendar these days.
What else are you going to do, Brandon?
Yeah, could you let me know so I can prepare my life better? I mean, I'm just continuing to work hard on getting ready for the draft. We're doing positional preview type episodes, like focusing in on positions of need for the Bills. And it's all with building the Bills draft board in mind. And so just do my own work on the draft and sharing those evaluations, dealing with the transactions as they come, some big picture stuff. I did a podcast this morning on James Cook. I thought it was really good. And then it got blown up by the Steph Diggs stuff. So the stuff that I do, big picture, roster construction, and I mean, we'll cover that every day on Locked On Bills.
Absolutely. And I know so many of our fans listen to Joe already, but if you don't, make sure you check it out. It's fantastic. Again, I was watching Eric and Anthony and Chris Trapasso live, and as soon as it finished, I jumped over and watched Joe's live reaction to the Stefon Diggs news today. Enjoy everything you do and enjoy being able to hang out with you here tonight, and appreciate you taking some time.
I actually saw you on my TV the other day. I was watching golf, and local news commercial came on, and they were like, and we also have Locked On Bills.
Oh wow. Cool. I was on there.
You were on there. It was a picture of you just like that behind the mic doing your thing. Wow. And I was like, yeah, I know that guy. He mutes me on Twitter.
Big time. He mutes me on Twitter.
I don't have you. AQ, I'm a big defender of you. You know that. I go to bat.
I'm just busting you.
All right.
I thought it was cool, though. I've seen you take the Locked On brand and grow the Locked On Bills. And it was cool to see a fellow content creator pop up on my TV and in the middle of the afternoon. So good for you, man. Appreciate it.
Very cool. Thanks for letting me. I literally had no idea about that. So thank you for sharing that.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you very much, Joe. We appreciate your time tonight, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, brother. So obviously, having Joe on tonight was fortuitous in having the crazy move that we did. And now our first segment of, here to help with our friends at William Mattar, now having somebody like Joe on to kind of talk through getting, me, I think I was a pretty good representation of the emotional overreaction of fans tonight. I'm normally the person trying to help calm people down and explain why it's okay and having the catharsis of processing it. And I think I was a pretty good representation of an emotional overreaction tonight. And it was nice to be able to talk through with you and Joe on how we can now take some next steps to react. I want to open it to you. Besides the draft, are there any pieces out there that maybe do intrigue you that we should look at as a potential signing.
Well, before we do get to that, I want to these exercises. So you and I have been pretty open about not jumping into the draft as early as we used to, right? Like the amount of work that we've done in the past years and being frustrated by that and jumping in a little late. This exercise the last couple of weeks here and having guys that do jump in early and really do a lot of work has been actually really good for me in confirming that even though I'm not jumping in crazy early and getting it into the work as early as everyone else, a lot of the guys I like line up with a lot of the guys they like, and the fits and things like that seem to still be there for us. And so that to me feels good that we've taken the right approach for us and for our show this year. That smart people are aligning with sort of how we're viewing how the Bills should attack this draft. So that is good. In terms of guys, you're saying guys that are out there right now in free agency
I'll
that
rattle
could
off
fill
a few.
this.
Yeah, for you as options, and for any fan who isn't aware,
Right.
Obviously there's a reason some of these guys are still available. So
Sure.
some are more older injury guide, like a Odell Beckham Jr. or a Michael Thomas. Some are maybe a younger guy who's bounced around a little bit, like DJ Chark, or having some drop issues, like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling. The one that I'm maybe intrigued by now that we don't have Diggs is Tyler Boyd.
Sure.
Maybe there's a chance there to be able to bring him in, especially if they're still looking at that kind of, maybe bigger body like a Xavier Legette type in the draft. It would make me more comfortable having just a solid professional veteran like a Tyler Boyd, bring back the drought breaking hero from that Andy Dalton connection when he helped launch the Bills into the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. I don't know that any of those guys are guys that I would want to sign before the draft, but
No.
let's say the draft falls a different way and there's a safety that's there that we really want, and we went with Bishop and Chad Beebe and didn't double dip at receiver because the value didn't line up right and we just got one guy. I wouldn't mind bringing in one of those guys, probably for me, Chark or Tyler Boyd, as a fallback option to add in after the draft.
Yeah, if in that scenario where you don't have an opportunity to double dip, but you did land somebody early,
Or the double dip was a 6th or 7th rounder and
sure,
not a sure lock for the
more of
roster.
a Justin Shorter type where this could take a few
Yeah, just
years
there's a
to
lottery
develop.
ticket. Maybe it hits. Maybe you get a Khalil Shakir, who's a later 5th round pick, but maybe it's an Austin Prohl and
Yeah,
doesn't
but
work
even
out.
Shakir took 1.5 years to
Yeah,
really
yeah,
get going. So that was still some development, more than fans want, I think. And here's the thing, too, like cornerback, wide receiver, it's a marathon season now in the NFL, and you're going to battle attrition at these positions. We've seen the Bills deal with it. I mean, part of the issue with Stefon Diggs was dealing with an injury and trying to play through it. And so having those guys, for me, it would be a Boyd, I think, would be able to come in and be that backup guy. The other thing Brandon Beane talked about, and this is something that I always try to remind everybody whenever I get an opportunity, is we get so focused on the draft, and we should. They have a lot of picks. There's a lot of opportunities to add to this team. But there's still a lot of time between now and the start of the season, and there's multiple ways to gain assets as an NFL team. And he brought up a great point that I think often gets overlooked, and especially in a class like this, where it is so wide receiver heavy and you have some pretty top tier wide receivers. Some of these teams are going to get double dip themselves or get a big time wide receiver, and it's going to push them to say, hey, maybe we can move on from this other vet. And there's going to be an influx of other players that come into the market and become available, whether it's through trade or our training camp cuts or things like that, that we don't even know yet. And so I would encourage people, and I'm probably going to do this myself, is maybe go look at some wide receivers that are on 1-year deals on other teams that are maybe
sure.
targeting wide receivers and things like that, where, hey, there might be some value here to go get a guy that is going
Maybe
to
we're back in on Cortland Sutton.
it could be guys like that. Yeah, you never know. And so I would say those are all options that we don't even know exist yet. So
Yeah.
even if they don't do a double dip in the draft, or you don't feel confident in the wide receiver room they have post draft, there will be other ways to acquire assets.
And I will say, I know you've been made some very good points about not being married to body type and traditional views of what's an inside or outside receiver. I would say now, especially with moving Diggs, I'd like someone who can play
Yeah,
on the
it's
outside or
different
have,
today than it was last
yeah.
week for me.
But I will say, if if they were to make a move for a guy like Courtland Sutton, it's just an example. I'm not saying that's likely or going to happen,
Sure.
but if they were to make a move like that, it would open up the draft for a Lad McConkey, for a Roman Wilson, for a Ricky Pearsall, rather than feeling like it needed to be a Xavier Legette or a Brian Thomas Jr. or an A.D. Mitchell. Whether it did or not, it would open that up even further. And
Yep.
as we're getting towards the end here, I do want to show, it's come up quite a bit in the chat here, so I am going to share it as we put it up on the screen. Stefon Diggs did send a very nice, respectful goodbye message. In summary, just sharing, I can't begin to express the amount of love and respect I have for the city of Buffalo for the best years of my life. The city welcomed me with open arms. I'm forever grateful for you and all the Buffalo Bills organization. Something special was built over these years with some very special men that will always have a place in my heart. Bills Mafia, so many great memories created through the years. Those games are crazy because of you. Sadly, good things come to an end until we meet again. 14. So I will say
that his comments are definitely all positive and great. Nobody's taking that any bit the
correct.
wrong way
Yeah,
at
if
all.
I were to scroll down through the mentions here, I'm sure it was all incredibly positive replies,
Yeah.
and exclusively positive. So, it just classy of him to do
Definitely.
that. I think plenty of people have read into the reasons why he was moved today, but nice to see a very respectful message on his way out.
Yeah. And I guess my last thing here, we're a little over our time here. And maybe this isn't even a question for now, is now that this is come to an end, and this is really this generation's kind of Kelly and Reed,
Oh,
right? Like
well, now in
blasting away
totality,
Bills.
but Hyde and Poyer, Morris, and now Diggs as a huge piece of that. You've made the
Yeah.
case, like the best receiver in franchise history. It's
At
big.
least talent wise, I think he was the best
Yeah,
receiver I've
maybe
seen
he
put
made
on a
that
Bills
more of an
uniform and
argument
play.
now, limiting it's only 4 seasons. Maybe it's now less of a sure thing.
Yes, I don't. Yeah, I don't know that he will have the longevity that Reed
Yeah.
had in terms of the stats and stuff with Reed, but he and Josh Allen were blasting away that record book for the Buffalo Bills. What is that legacy right now? Because I know that I've seen a lot of anger directed towards him and people showing the picture of him dropping the pass against Kansas City and saying this is what he'll be remembered for as the Buffalo Bills. And I couldn't agree less with that sentiment. Like, yes, this didn't end how I anticipated it. I'm still a little bit in shock of how this has gone. But when I do start to look back, it's all fondness and great memories and me being like yelling at my TV every time he and Josh hooked up and like, this is untouchable. Like, you can't guard these two. In those memories, there's a legacy there that is bigger than the tweets and bigger than the one drop he had or not showing up in a playoff game or two. What about you? Where do you think his legacy stands as a Buffalo Bill?
It'll be a complicated one. I think in time I'll be able to just remember how insanely electric he was and how he I think a lot of comments came up about, how essential was he to Josh's development and how would Josh have been able to do this without him? The part that I think is inarguably true is he was a huge piece of unlocking Josh Allen to this level that we've seen. Um, do I maybe other people could have also helped unlock it, but he's the one who did. And he was here, he and Brian Dable and that offense unlocked this version of the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life. And I'm always going to be thankful for him being a part of that.
Yep.
Some of the most fun offense I've ever seen, some of the highest scoring offense I've ever enjoyed. And he was the biggest non-Josh Allen part of that. He was the biggest piece of that. So, the antics, the cryptic tweets, the off-field challenges and locker room things, of course that's going to get some attention now. There's going to be a lot of people who don't root for him and don't want him to do well in Houston. I'm not going to care. I don't want him to do well in the game he plays us, but I'm not going to root for him to fail. I'm not going to want him to be bad just to make me feel better about this move. I'm appreciative of what he did when he was here. It's complicated right now because I think he certainly had a heavy hand in why he's no longer here. We're never going to know how big of a slice of that pie is why they're not here, but it's a plenty big one. It might not be the whole pie, but it's a plenty big slice, and that's going to be hard for me to just kind of sweep under the rug. But in time, I'll remember the awesome games, the awesome highlights, the high flying offense, and again,
Him telling
being a
Patriots fans
key.
to F you, F you.
Yeah, yes, correct. And again, being a huge part of unlocking Josh Allen. People can argue that maybe he would have gotten unlocked without him, but he did get unlocked with him, and that is inarguable. He was a big piece of unlocking what we now get to enjoy and still enjoy, is having Josh Allen as our franchise quarterback.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Again, not exactly what we had in mind with kicking off our, here to help segment with William Mattar. We're very excited to have them as our presenting sponsor for our Wednesday shows going forward. They're awesome as partners. They've been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to all the things we can do with them. And one other piece to remember, we've had a lot of people join us. Today was a crazy time in the Slack channel, but a good time to be there. If you want to figure out a way to help us out even more and enter yourself in a chance to win some awesome prizes, we're giving away everyone who signed up since roughly February 1st, all the way through the draft over those 3 months, is entered in a contest to win a PlayStation 5, a Josh Allen jersey, not a Stefon Diggs jersey, some other autograph goodies, a Bills neon sign, and even more. Listen to these guys here. Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One OnePass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
All right. So, Aaron, I will say I do feel better than I did at the beginning of the show. I've been down in the dumps all day long, just frustrated with all the pieces of the decision and how it came together. But ultimately, I've gotten myself back around to where I need to be, which is the guidance from our friend.
Buffalo Bills going undefeated, and we're going to the Super Bowl. Yep,
I'm glad you're back. I think it's the weather. I don't know how the weather is in Cleveland, but here
it's dreary and rainy and crappy.
Yeah, I think it's seasonal depression accelerating that feeling for you. So
yeah. It was a rough day. It was a rough day.
Yeah.
I won't lie.
And we've got to let the people know we will not be here next week for them. We are taking a week off. I know we usually don't announce it, and we usually don't tell people that we will be taking a week off from the show. And then people hit us up on Wednesday or on Thursday, and they're like, where was the show? So preemptively, we will not be here for 1 week. We'll be right back doing more mocks the following week.
Yeah. So we will not be here next Wednesday, April 10th. Both Aaron and I are traveling. So rather than trying to shuffle that around, you will be in good hands with the awesome guys over the film room, breaking down everything that's going on. Hopefully no more crazy news from Brandon Bean, but we'll see how those things go. And then we'll be back 2 more shows to be able to go through each of the different pieces for what we have remaining, leading up to the draft, getting ready, and then our live coverage, obviously, during the draft. We'll have Dave Tilton is helping lead that with Steve Mathis, with Anthony Prohaska, with all the different guys live each show, and then we'll do reaction shows after the picks each night. All kinds of good stuff. Everyone's going to be there for you all the way through the draft, but we're ready for it, and we'll be back after next week's absence.
That's it. And Chris has it up here. Big part of what we're doing we talked about it with Joe a little bit. If there's any golf fans watching, I know golf's a little divisive right now, but we are starting Cover One Golf. It's a kind of a pet project right now. But producer Chris Kepner is a big part of that. David Tilton, who's on the Air Raid Hour, those guys, you know them. He's a big part of it. And our good friend, not with Cover One, but always a good friend, Nate Geary, is going to be also a big part of it. So he's got it scrolling down there. Follow us at Cover One Golf, wherever your social medias are. We are going to get that ramped up. Here's the Masters ramps up here going into the next week.
Yeah, so I'm very excited for you. I know you and Chris and Dave are huge golf guys and talk about it all the time, and have
Yes.
built that again. And just another perk of the Slack channel, the golf channel in there is a
It's taken out. It's getting
thriving
going over there in
group
the golf
building up
channel.
there. So just one more reason to sign up. Donnie here saying that he just joined Cover One. So welcome, Donnie. We're
Welcome,
excited
Donnie.
to have you there. More and more jumping aboard. Help us out, jump on. It's the biggest way to support us. But on behalf of awesome producer Chris Kepner and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.